Good evening. The ambassador of Finland to South Caucasus, Kirsti Närinen, will sit down with the First News Channel tonight.
Your Excellency, thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you so much for the invitation.
Your Excellency, what does Armenia, as a state that has just exited a bloody war with Azerbaijan, is on the doorstep of another, if we listen to some experts, has lost NK, that was the homeland of 100,000 ethnic Armenians, have to learn from the Finnish history?
Well, I think each country and each region has its own history, so you cannot really draw many parallels. You can draw some, however. I mean, Finland's history has been very much connected with the great powers around it, which have been historically Germany, Sweden and Russia. Here in this region, in the South Caucasus region, as you know, I'm ambassador to all three countries in the region. It's Russia, Turkey and Iran, with different names that have been dominating the history. In Finland's case, now being a member of the Nordic family, being the member of European Union, and now since 4th of April last year also NATO, of the greater powers around us, only Russia is the one that is having a great impact on our life. And our political history also as we speak. But in this region, the pressure of the three big countries has never gone away. It's still here. It's been here centuries, thousands of years actually, to be exact, with different constellations and different names. So you cannot really draw parallels. But what we have learned in Finland is, first and foremost, is that you need to do what you can to build resilience, to build your society, to build your democracy, to build your economic prosperity, because that's the point where you can have an impact yourself as a state. And then how the bigger powers around you act, it's largely beyond your control. But if you have a solid state which is unanimous in sustaining, developing, building your state and your statehood, not only the nation, because Armenians as a nation is a global phenomenon, but a state called Armenia
that will resist the turbulences of the time.
Yes, and this is something that we learned from our history. When we started building the Grand Duchy of Finland in 1809, we had 100 years of almost independence when we really became independent, and that kept us unified. Then also through the two World War sections that concerned us. And building a statehood is a very, very difficult task, and I think this is probably what Armenia could invest in.
Your Excellency, let's come back from this excursion in history to the present day politics on the ground. The EU expanded mission along Armenia-Azerbaijan border is clearly an important tool in establishing peace in the region, but the Azerbaijani Foreign Ministry keeps speaking against it, denouncing it. Recently, they summoned the EU ambassador in Baku, questioned the impartiality of the mission, and warned it against causing, quote, damage to Azerbaijan's territorial integrity. How would you comment on this?
Well, first of all, you have to remember that the first idea of the mission was agreed with the Azeri president, Prime Minister Pashinyan, President Macron and President Michel of the European Union in Prague in autumn 2022. And it was built, and the decision making was made then. It was only provisional for 2 months first, and then after that the decision was made in the EU structures in a record speed. So
Azerbaijan seems to have changed its mind, and this could be a sign, plus the protracted peace process, that they do not want peace.
Well, this I cannot comment really, but I mean, it is obvious that having a peace and having a peace process requires political will of both sides. And yes, there seems to have been moments that the political will has not been the same or strong enough on both sides. But of course, the presidential elections in Azerbaijan might have had an impact on the process and the desire. And we shall see probably also in the nearest future if both sides or also Azerbaijan would be really ready to sit at the negotiations table with Armenia, with facilitators or without them. Because anyways, I mean, this sustainable peace can only be negotiated. It cannot be enforced. The EU monitoring mission is a balancing power. It is bringing stability. It is feeding the European Union member state and system with information, objective information about what is going on in the border areas. A very large part of their mission is also to talk to the people who live in the border zones, to ask about their lives, their needs, to bring EU to their vicinity, to their yards, and showing that European Union cares. European Union wants to be here where stability and prosperity is.
Speaking of democracy or authoritarianism, the elections in Baku were carried out with violations of fundamental human rights. An authoritarian regime re-elected. Shortly after, the violence erupted on the border. 4 Armenian soldiers were killed on the border in a mission Baku calls retribution for 1 Azerbaijani soldier being shot. What's your commentary on this?
Well, it shows that the situation on the border is very, very tense. The soldiers are very close to each other, they can see each other, and it's obvious that emotions sometimes erupt. This was a very, very unfortunate incident, and I'm very happy that it seems not to lead to any escalation, any further escalation. Armenian side has promised to investigate what happened, and of course we are very much wanting to hear what the results of that investigation is. And this is further proving the point that having the leaders of the two countries sit at the negotiations table to really take concrete steps towards a stabilization and a peace process. Or a peace agreement is only part of the peace process, because it's actually more important what happens after the peace agreement is signed, regardless of what is the format of that, be it then a framework agreement or more detailed. The work of consolidation, the neighborly relations, only starts after that, and for that you also need what the High Representative said, that you would need to distance the troops from each other so that there would be some kind of a decent, consolidated, stabilized section where then the delimitation of the border itself could be established. And all this is a very, very long process and no quick wins for anybody.
Prime Minister Pashinyan said yesterday that he sees a threat of a large-scale war from the side of Baku. Do you think that what happened a few days ago was a local border incident?
Well, we don't know. I would not have the courage to comment that any further. Well, it seems to anyway have stabilized. There has been no further escalation about that. And I think that it is very important that the incident itself, the first shooting, would be investigated, just like the Armenian authorities have promised, so that there would be some clarity of what actually happened and why that first incident was taking place, because also High Representative Borrell said that it was a deplorable action. So it was very, of course, every act of violence needs to be condemned.
Your Excellency, the Finnish Army is considered to be among the best in the world by combat readiness, and while the Armenian army is under reconstruction, experts point to the Finnish model for reforms. What's the expertise Finland has to share with us on the diplomatic level for right now, and is there cooperation in the defense sector?
what we have been speaking a lot with your authorities, not only your National Security Council, but also others, has been a comprehensive security concept, which is a concept that we have, you can all Google that, comprehensive security concept. And that is built of 7 elements of security. One of them is military preparedness and military capabilities and the army, armed forces. We have a conscript army system. Also, my son went to the army last year. He's now 22. They learn the skills in the time period of 6 months for the normal soldiers, and then for non-commissioned officers like my son, it was 12 months. They learn the skills how to defend your country, but they also learn, or they don't learn, they confirm the desire, the will to defend your country. And that is very high in Finland, very, very high. Young men really come out of the army service even more active and even more committed for defending your country. And this is very, very important. And it has been emphasized also in the military educational system, that you really have to treat the soldiers the way that army is a place where they felt good, where they felt this partnership and comradeship of their teams. Of course, procurement and arms procurements are very important. We bought the first American F-16 Hornet, F-18 Hornet planes, fighter jets, already in 1992, which was very, very early. And now we are renewing our fleet and buying F-35s. We are buying new ships. We are buying our artillery is the strongest in Europe. You wouldn't perhaps think of that. We have 285,000 soldiers immediately responsive to any military action, and we have about 800,000 reserve. And those reserve troops are already allocated, so you know, if in a crisis situation, you know where to go and what to do. Your assignment is allocated for you. And these all, as a package, plus democracy, stable political system, and human rights situation, are the reasons, the very reasons, why Finland's admittance to the NATO was in the speed time. Because all those requirements that NATO puts on new members or new allies were already there. We were an asset. We were bringing in capabilities, but also this culture of defense to the NATO. And this is why we have been treated very well, and Finland has been considered to be an important ally in the NATO, albeit we have been only there for less than a year.
By the way, what made Finland change its historic neutrality and join NATO?
Yes, well, neutrality, non-alignment, we want to emphasize always that we were non-aligned, but we were not neutral. We were EU members since 1995, and that kind of ended the Cold War time neutrality concept. We obviously were very concerned about Russia's annexation of Crimea and kind of aggressive and imperialistic behavior on its borders, not only in Ukraine, but also elsewhere, also here in South Caucasus. But of course that their aggressive attack for no reason in Ukraine in February 22 was kind of the last drop. Then we realized that if Russia can attack a country which is a neighboring, peaceful and peace-willing, peace-loving neighbor, and culturally also very close to them, they can do it wherever. They can do it also in the northern borders. And regardless of the fact that we had the capabilities and we were prepared to receive any military operation or military act, we lacked the deterrence. So the decision actually to join NATO was also nationally record fast. And it came together with the people. I mean, people's opinion changed. From I don't have an opinion to yes, I have an opinion. A lot of people there were a certain percentage that were for the membership, let's say 15%, and there were a certain percentage that were for it or for a very long time. And then in between you had the 60%, 60-70% who didn't have an opinion, including myself. So, but these people who now had not had an opinion, they formed one, and it was then easy for the politicians across the board, from the left wing to the right wing, to agree with this proposal of the government to join NATO, because we thought that we need an additional deterrent force to our package of military security. And when NATO was very, very happy and very responsive to our proposal, then of course we got the feeling of security immediately. Then that was of course already before this, complemented with bilateral arrangements, so-called Joint Expeditionary Forces, JEF organization with the Baltics, Nordics, United Kingdom, Netherlands. We had a very strong bilateral cooperation with the United States. So these multilateral arrangements then complemented with bilateral. That's where our deterrence at the moment stands on, plus our own capabilities. So I think Finland feels very safe at the moment.
Which is something that we would appreciate in Armenia as well. A lot of experts in the field point out that Armenia needs to leave CSTO and start making steps towards joining NATO. Do you believe that there is a chance for Armenia to do that right now?
Well, I think this is something that I would rather not comment, but what I would like to emphasize and repeat is that building your own capabilities is something that you can do, and that is something that every country has the right to do. Every country has the right to self-defense, and self-defense requires the capabilities. It requires good a military training system, good reserve system, good leadership on the micro level, but also on the macro level of the defense forces. And I think Armenia is showing steps towards that direction. And I think building your own capabilities is the right thing to do.
Finnish education is among the best in the world. Education in Armenia is in need of and under reconstruction at the moment. Which parts of Finnish experience in education, in your opinion, could be useful for Armenia, and is there cooperation in this regard?
There isn't much cooperation yet, but I think that you are quite right, because educational system is a fundamental building block of your statehood. Children are taught things that they would need when building your future in your country, but also maybe, you know, occasionally some expertise gathered from abroad is also useful. So exchange programs, etc. We have a very unique system in the also globally, because it is uniform. We have very, very few private schools, and even the private schools have the state curriculum, which means that every person, every child in Finland are offered equal opportunities to build your life on equal basis. So it's up to you, and it's up to your skills and your commitment of what kind of future you build. And this is also the Nordic inclusiveness or inclusion is the foundation and the building block of this. Schools are respected. Teachers have all of them have university training. We also have a number of male teachers, which I think is very important, because usually it tends to be that the kindergarten teachers are women, and then you have the women who are teachers in your school system, and that is kind of biodiversity, and everything is good. And it goes all the way. It's also free of charge till the 12th grade. We have 12 grades, which is the basic education, but also the universities are free. Like my daughter is studying at the university, and the fee is 69 euros for registration every year. So this is really giving everybody the equal opportunity to learn and to build your future. It also has this element of less hierarchy that in many other countries, where it means that the teacher is there not to lecture, but to facilitate the learning, supporting the learning, of course teaching as well, but more bringing also responsibility to the child, and particularly later for you to build your path. And out of all these elements, then the education system is growing. I'm not saying that it's a perfect system. It is also under stress today. Digital services, mobile phones, smartphones is destroying.
They're facing the same challenges as every other school globally.
It's a global problem, and it is distorting young people's ability to concentrate. They don't read books anymore. They don't really follow the news because they find the news in social media spheres. And this is putting a lot of emphasis on the teaching of societal skills and societal studies, meaning that, for instance, media literacy is of vital importance. And there has been a very, very high level of emphasis on that because, everybody, not only the young people, but also the grown-up, we need to be able to filter facts from fiction and facts from opinions and information influencing of those who want to cause societal disturbance and splits in the society is a tool very widely used.
I see a book on the table right before you. It's The History of Finland, as far as I know, by Henrik Meinander, the best-known modern Finnish historian, that was published and presented to the Armenian reader, an effort coordinated by the, surprisingly, Foreign Affairs Office of Finland. Does this suggest a state-level interest in deepening cultural ties with Armenia, and is there more to come in the cultural respect?
Yes, I think that my main mission, I have been now in this position for the 4th year running. My main mission right from the beginning was to put South Caucasus on the screens in Finland, and on the screens not as a crisis area, because you connect this region mainly with genocide and earthquakes and landslides and political disturbances. Now the recent wars, but also wars in the 90s, internal like civil wars like they had in Georgia, Abkhazia, South Ossetia are permanently problematic. And now the latest, of course, the exodus of people from Karabakh brought the region really a lot to the news channels also in Finland. And what I would very much like to contribute to, together with my colleagues or my diplomatic colleagues from the region in the north, is to find new angles to this communication and cooperation between our two countries. Education was already mentioned, then this comprehensive security conceptual approach to security, which we can share our experiences. And this book is about his Finnish history. It's a book that has been already translated into 18 languages. Professor Meinander is here in Armenia. He came with great pleasure, and he's going through a very, very large publicity campaign, not only talking about the book, but talking about Finland. And I'm very, very happy that I was able to establish this cooperation contact with him. More to come, I would hope so. We have had some discussions about more translations of Finnish literature to Armenian, but also the other way around. I think it would be very, very important that Armenian books would be translated into Finnish. There's not that many Armenia-Finnish translators. Also, this book was translated through English. But you, of course, lose something, but I think there's a concept. This is something that I would have to continue discussing with my Armenian, Georgian, and also Azerbaijani colleagues.
Thank you one more time for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for your time.
The ambassador of Finland to South Caucasus, Kirsti Näärinen, sat down with the First News Channel tonight.